All right, let's talk about a few special accessories that you should have that will work well with your portable recorder. And the first is this little item from Zoom. This is designed to screw into the bottom of your Zoom recorder, or it will work with probably most Tascams and other recorders. And it's shaped like a Shure SM57 microphone, and it's designed to fit into a standard mic clip just like that to hold your recorder. Now you can take your recorder and you can set it on a table or something like that, but the best way is with a mic stand. So here's the Zoom recorder with that accessory plugged into the bottom, and again, there we go. You just set it right in to the mic clip, and it's sturdy, it's steady, it's not going to move, and it's perfect. And the nice thing with the mic clip too is you're able to tilt it some. And those run about $8 or $9. Very, very versatile accessory. I actually have two of them because why not? You know, I keep one with the H6 and I use one with some of my other recording units. Again, like I said, it just screws into the bottom here. We have standard camera mount threads here, and you can see the small threads on there, and it just screws right in. So it's a great little thing to have. All right, this is another type of mount that works out really well. It has the threads here to go into the bottom of the recorder. And what's nice about this, it has a ball and socket type of unit here. So you can position this in all sorts of different ways at different angles. But these are the same type of threads you'll find on the top of a camera tripod. So you could even mount your recorder on a camera tripod. If we go here, and just let me find the threads here. Hard to see them in the shadow. There we go. So we just tighten that down. And again, we've got this possibility of mounting this and adjusting it at whatever sort of angles we want. And where that can come in handy is if we've got the boom arm and we're positioning that. Let's say we've got this coming at an angle, but we want the microphone straight. You know, we can do something like this, and there we go. And we've got that set up for however we need it. So it's a versatile little unit. These are, you can get these for probably about $15, $20. There's different ones on the market, but yeah. And then it just comes right off. So that's a nice little accessory to have. Okay, I'm going to show you a tip that's probably one of the better tips you'll get. It's something that has saved me a lot. And it has to do with powering your units. I rarely ever use AC power directly into a wall unless I'm in my studio, because I'll have easy access to the wall. But if you're out in the field and nobody wants to run a 30-foot extension cord to a plug-in on the other side of the yoga studio or wherever you are, it's just so you can power your recorder. It's a pain. It's a cord somebody can trip over, and it just takes more time than necessary. Now, most portable recorders run on just AA batteries, and you can get a few hours or more out of a pair of batteries, or 4 batteries as in the H6's case, and that's fine. But the thing I love about the Zoom equipment, and I'm not sure if this works with all Tascam or other recording gear, is that you can power it through USB with a standard battery charging pack like this, like you would charge your phone with. So I can go all day recording on a battery pack like this. And that has saved me so much, because I know that I've got enough power. And what's nice is, like on this one, they usually have a light up meter that tells you how much power is left. And not to mention they're rechargeable, so you're not just throwing out hundreds of batteries. Now what I have done, I've modified all my mic stands. On the back of this battery pack is a piece of Velcro. And over here on the mic stand is a piece of Velcro. So I stick all my battery packs right onto my mic stand like that. Then I can put my cord in. And I'll grab the F6, put that up here. Actually, it goes in the other side. I can plug it in. And there I am. I've got battery power for all day, which is really great. I'm going to show you some of the stereo mic configurations we talked about last week with actual microphones in a setup. Now, the one thing to notice is none of these setups have cords going into the microphone. So you have to assume that we have them plugged in with a cord running to whatever recorder or interface that we are using. This first one is the standard XY setup. And in this, I'm using 2 small condenser microphones using the standard mic clips. And this is pretty much the type of configuration that you will find in the built-in microphones on most digital recorders with a stereo XY microphone setup. And if we look at it here, we have the mics crossed over at a 90-degree angle with one mic on top of the other. We could widen that angle a bit, make it like 120 degrees, get a little more of a stereo separation there. But the standard configuration is 90 degrees. Let me pull this in a little so you get a better look at it. And again, we've got standard mic clips. These are rigid. And the thing you have to watch for is that your mics aren't touching. You don't really want them touching because you can get some extraneous noise. And we have it on the stereo mic bar. And most mic bars will allow you to slide these mounts so you can do different sort of positions and get different width. So on this one I have the 2 mic clips close. And I also have this extension here to get this microphone up a little higher so I can have it coming over the lower microphone there. But again, there's our standard XY setup using small condenser mics in standard mic clips. Right, now we are going to look at the same sort of setup. It's an XY setup, but we are using 2 small condenser microphones in shock mounts. And in this configuration, instead of having the microphones one above the other, I have the diaphragms almost touching here. You can see we have, and you can see with the shock mount, the mics are movable. So when you set these up here, as I've moved around a little as I've moved the stand, you want basically a 90-degree angle. Again, you don't want the mics touching or close enough to touch, because if there's any jostling of things, you will get the sound of the mics hitting each other. So this is your basic XY with shock mounts. And again, we could change this a bit. Let's loosen this here if I can. And we could bring out the angle a little more. From 90 degrees, I could turn them both and get a little wider angle, more like 120. But this is your 90-degree angle with the shock mounts. Here we have the XY setup with two large condenser microphones. Now, because of the shock mounts, unless you were to position one upside down on another boom arm coming from above, you cannot get the diaphragms right next to each other. You cannot get the mics that close. But this is still an XY 90-degree situation. And again, we have the shock mounts. You can see there's some play in there to help keep any extra noise out. And like I said last week, if somebody wants to bump the microphone stand, or if you had a wooden floor or some sort of floor that, resonated, any sort of walking or stomping or dropping something on the floor might resonate through the mic stand into the mics. So the shock mounts help to keep all that extra sound out. Now, for most of my setups, I just use standard mic clips with a small diaphragm condenser pair like the first setup I showed you. It's just much easier to do, and I usually don't have time to try to configure the shock mounts and to set up the shock mounts and all that. If I'm here in my studio doing some recording, then that's a whole different situation, and I will usually use the shock mounts. But again, you can see this is our XY setup with two large condenser microphones. Okay, here's our same large diaphragm condenser microphones set up in what we call the spaced pair or the AB microphone setup. And we can see on this, we're using the large stereo bar that comes with the SE mics. And we can see the microphone diaphragms are approximately 10 inches apart, 9.5 or 10 inches apart. Now, in a spaced pair, you could also use two separate stands and put the microphones further apart. 2 feet, 3 feet, 5 feet. I've even seen people put them on opposite sides of the room. And each different setup will give you a different sort of stereo width to what you're doing. I've also seen people take the space pair and angle the mics out a little like that, where you could angle both mics out to get a little wider sound stage. A lot to do with these setups is to experiment. Try things, record something, listen to it, record something with the mics in a different setup, and when you put all this together in your recording software, compare them. See which type of sound that you prefer. What's working for the situation you are going for. So again, AB space pair, stereo bar, shock mounts, two large condenser microphones set up generally on a cardioid setup here. Although you could do the figure 8 or an omni if you want to get the sound from the back, if you want a more spacious sound, like if you're in a hall with nice reverberation, nice acoustics, you might want to go with the figure 8 or the omni setup to get all that nice reverb Whereas if you're just using cardioid and you're coming from the front, you're not going to get so much of the room sound. Now another thing about these is I would put these up in the air. I just have them down here, which is about 4 feet above the floor, you know, to facilitate filming them. But on a boom stand, I would raise these up probably as high as I could get them. And if you're doing something like this and you've got heavy microphones, make sure you either have a heavy wide base on your stand or you weigh it down. Recording people will often use sandbags on the legs of the microphone stand to help keep it from tipping. I mean, you don't want to have your expensive mics get knocked over or fall because of the weight or anything. So you need to take precautions. But with these, I would always take and, you know, just extend it up. And again, that's something you can play with if you have one space where you're mainly recording. Is, you know, try different heights with the mics. Try it coming from a little more overhead. Try it at this level here. This is about a little above my waist level. Like I said, it's a little above probably 4 feet or so. And see what you like. See if it's getting the type of sound that you're looking for. All right, here's another setup with the large diaphragm condensers. This is the ORTF setup, where we have the mics here both facing outwards, approximately, I believe, 30 centimeters in between at a 110-degree angle to simulate the human head and the ears and how we pick up sound. I like to use this pattern a lot. I like just the spatial sound stage it provides. I think it's a very natural sound for acoustic instruments, especially things like gongs and singing bowls and such. So I almost always will use an ORTF setup when I'm recording in stereo. And that's personally my preference. You might listen to that. You might listen to an AB or an XY setup and, you know, prefer one of those. And again, that's the thing is, you know, try different recording methods and see what you like. And you also will find that in different rooms, different spaces, a different sort of mic setup might work better. Here in my studio, it's fairly dry sounding and it's not a huge room, but I like to use the ORTF because I feel it gives me a little more space than the XY setup does. But then I'll often put up 2 pairs of stereo microphones, one in the ORTF and another set in the XY, and that allows me to choose one or the other or to blend the two in post-production. And now I'd like to show you what's my personal setup out in the field when I am recording my gong setup. For quick setups, I'll just use the Zoom H6 with the XY microphones. That works out really well. It's easy to set up and get going. When I have more time or a better hall, like a church or something with really a great spatial sound, I'll take out my Superlux ORTF microphone and use that in conjunction with the H6. Now we can see the Superlux, these are fixed diaphragms. So this is always set up in the ORTF configuration, which I like because I don't have to hassle trying to get everything at the right angle and having things move on you and you got to readjust it and whatever. There's 2 mics. We get a 5-pin connector on this, and then it comes into a Y cord that I just put another cord into, and then go into channels 1 and 3 usually on my H6. So this allows me to get the XY recording and an ORTF recording out in the field. What I normally do is have the zoom here. As you can see, I'm using that extender clamp on the side of the mic stand, and I'll have the zoom on here, and then I have the ORTF on a boom so I can raise it up. Normally I'll have the zoom mounted right below, right here, right below the boom connection, and have that raised up on the mic stand as far as it can be, and then I will raise the boom arm as far as I can to get that ORTF mic up in the air. And this works really well. And you could do it with any sort of mic configuration. Have your Zoom or your Tascam, whatever, portable recorder here, and then have an XY or a space pair or something on a stereo bar, and have those up in the air. And I find that works well because I have 2 different types of recordings. I have the XY and I have the ORTF, and I can choose from them, or I can blend them together. Or even in some recording situations, I might use one in a certain part of the recording and the other mic setup in a different part of the recording, because it's getting more the type of sound I want. So it's pretty easy, it's pretty flexible, and it's pretty basic out in the field to do something like this.